Well, so it's been 12 days since your hunger strike that started on the 18th of May. And I know how difficult this question can be, but I'd like to ask, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling a lot of different things, a mixture of deep concern and frustration and anger, which has been going on for months. However, now I feel as though I am doing something which is making a difference, and so I do feel proud of that. But also I feel concerned for my family and my friends who love me and care about me and are seeing me go through this. That's weighing on my mind quite a lot. But physically, I'm feeling pretty good, to be honest. I went and had a doctor's checkup yesterday, and they did a heart check and a blood test, and that all came back fine. So, yeah, feeling generally pretty positive and good to be doing something.
Yeah, that's good. As a Palestinian, seeing, what you're doing, we are your family and you are our family, and it has been a concern to us with how you're feeling. But I want to focus this on you. Just tell us a bit more of, when the activism for Palestine has started and what has led you and motivated you to take this big journey.
Yeah, so I started properly doing activism for Palestine in early January of this year. I did a walk from Ōtautahi to the Israeli embassy up in Wellington, which is about 600 kilometers. And I raised money for UNICEF and I raised awareness about the issue. But at the end of it, I still felt as though there's a lot more to do and a lot more pressure that needs to be put on our government to do more. So I got involved in the Palestine Solidarity Network when I'd finished that walk, and took part in organising the rallies that happen every Saturday at 1 o'clock at the Bridge of Remembrance, and embedded myself in that community, which was really positive because they're so active and creative, and it was because of that community and that support crew that I was then able to commit to this hunger strike. So that's been my journey since January, but there is still a huge amount more to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it always feels like that. Yeah, it's never enough. But a great community, like you said, with PSNA, where you fight for human rights, is a great way to surround yourself with. But seeing that people might not understand your motivation behind this, your impact behind this, what would you tell them? What would you say to them?
I'm motivated by the images that we're all seeing. The images from Rafah on Sunday. I'm motivated by stories like Hind Rajab, who was riding in a car with her family when an Israeli tank fired on the car and killed everyone inside except her. She then phoned the Red Crescent, who sent an ambulance, and the Israeli forces killed everyone in the ambulance, and then Hind was found 2 weeks later amongst the bodies, dead amongst the bodies of her family. It's things like this that motivated me, as well as our own government's inaction on the issue, that motivates me to do something about this. I'm also motivated by my grandfather, who I was named after, and I feel like I have a deep connection with him. He risked his life during the Second World War to stop genocide, and so I can't find a way of living with myself if I let this happen again, when he was willing to risk his life to stop this from happening. So a mixture of the footage that we're all seeing, our government's inaction, and my own ancestors' sacrifice to stop this kind of thing from happening.
Yeah. I think what we see of what's happening, the atrocious things, just makes a normal human moved and motivated to do something as powerful that you decided for yourself to do. So it is very much appreciated, but concerning as well. But no, thank you for sharing that.
And I don't understand how Christopher Luxon can see those images and still not do everything within his power to stop this genocide.
Yeah, same question. Yeah. And it's good to see that, there are normal humans that think like you, and it's just unimagining on what else can happen, until what else has to happen that the government can finally do something. But no, thanks for sharing that. Now your demands are, one being continue and doubling the UNRWA funding.
At least double, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Number 2 being stop the Raccoon Company to stop producing weapon components that are used in the genocide that Israel is forcing upon Gaza, and pulling New Zealand troops out of the Red Sea, and so the government has responded to this and has mentioned that the New Zealand troops are in the Red Sea, and I quote, "a continuation of New Zealand's long history of defending freedom of navigating." How do you feel about that?
Well, Yemen is taking action against Israeli shipping, which is providing munitions for Israel's genocide. So why is New Zealand joining the United States to attack a country which is trying to stop a genocide? Christopher Luxon is not being transparent with us about what those troops are doing there, and it's unclear whether their presence there is increasing New Zealand's security or whether we have inadvertently entered a war. It's also incoherent for New Zealand to protect maritime security but not protect Palestinians from war crimes. Meanwhile, Christopher Luxon is not doing everything within his power to end this genocide, which is his duty.
Yeah. We say, why is our government complicit to this genocide? And it just seems they just don't understand what being complicit means. One example of what you mentioned. So it's pretty hard to understand how they're going about it. But how do you also feel about the general response of these demands, of the demands that I just mentioned of yours, by the government and political leaders in general?
Well, Christopher Luxon he addressed the hunger strike on television, and he made a long list of, he essentially tried to defend the New Zealand government's position on this, and expressed that he felt very proud of New Zealand's response in this. However, he then went on to make a long list of things that the New Zealand government has called for, but only 2 practical things that they've actually done. The first thing that they've done is they've increased aid funding to substitute organizations which are nowhere near as equipped as UNRWA in terms of personnel and intimacy with the region. So that's one thing that they've done. And don't get me wrong, any humanitarian aid is desperately needed at the moment, of course.
Exactly.
And so that's a good thing that he's done to increase that funding to the Red Cross and another organisation. But it's UNRWA that we really need to be funding. And New Zealanders really want to know about whether we will be increasing funding to UNRWA or not. The second thing that they've done is they have voted for the Palestinian state to have increased participation at the UN. So those are the 2 practical things that Christopher Luxon has done. They're good steps, but it's nowhere near enough. There are a lot of things that Christopher Luxon could be doing, but isn't doing. He could increase funding to UNRWA. Winston Peters could make that announcement today. There's nothing stopping him other than the fact that he needs to read the reports. New Zealand could join South Africa's case against Israel at the ICJ. New Zealand could grant the humanitarian visas for Gazans with whānau here in Aotearoa, like Labour did for Ukrainians. I cannot make sense of why those visas have not been granted yet.
Where's the difference?
They could. Why haven't they expelled the Israeli ambassador? why haven't they put sanctions on Israel? Why haven't they investigated Raycon, a company with huge question marks around them that the government knows about? Why haven't they withdrawn the troops from the Red Sea, or at least told us what they're doing there? Are they killing people? Are we at war with Yemen and you didn't tell us? Why haven't they called on the US to stop arming Israel? Why haven't they recognized a Palestinian state? Why don't they agree with international experts who agree that this is a textbook case of genocide? There are so many things that Christopher Luxon could be doing and is not doing, and he has no reason to feel proud of our government's response.
Yeah, there's so many whys, but absolutely no answers that we get. And just like you mentioned, there's so many that could be done, so much. Yet we get the one or two, you know, we've done this, we've done enough, you should be thankful kind of thing. But, you know, we should always be ready onto doing more and more, as, you know, New Zealand should be leading to be on the right side of history and not following on the wrong side of history. So I absolutely agree to that. But tell me, what do you feel like your connection is, being a New Zealander, to what's happening to the Palestinians?
Well, my identity as a New Zealander is tangata tiriti, so I'm Pākehā through and through. And I have guilt about the things that my ancestors did and did not do during our colonial history and during the colonization of this country. So I'm not proud of a lot of the things that come along with being Pākehā in New Zealand, in Aotearoa. There are a lot of dark chapters in our history that I think if we could learn from and recognize that these things that happened in our history, like the musket wars, like illegal confiscation of land, domination, suppression, these things are happening now. Israel is committing these crimes now, murder, which has happened in our history, but now we are supporting them as Israel carries out the same mistakes.
Given the outrage of what is happening to the Palestinian people on indigenous territory, how do you feel like this should be the response of this very country, given its own indigenous heritage and identity?
Well, we have a treaty here in New Zealand, which is built on working together. The spirit of that is working together. So we need to honour the treaty. We need to continue to understand that we're all different, and because we're different, that makes us stronger and more creative. And if we work together, like the spirit of the treaty is suggesting that we do, we will be so much more able to celebrate people and cultures and find new ways of doing things, better ways of building houses and educating our children and keeping ourselves healthy. So I think that our country needs to honour the treaty and also recognise the dark chapters in our history fully and openly, so that we can move forward as a real unified team.
Now, the media has attempted to paint the marches as hateful and anti-Semitic. Now, with the experience that you have with the protests, what do you say about that?
The protests that I've been to quite a few rallies around the Motu, and they've had such a beautiful environment. There is a general sense of conversation, good conversations taking place, as well as a general sense of pride in taking part in something which is making a difference and is putting pressure on the government to do more. There is a real community building here in Ōtautahi every Saturday at 1 o'clock at the Bridge of Remembrance. It's growing, and the people are becoming more organized and more vocal, and we have rallies here once a week, which is quite regular compared to other places around the country, and I think that's helped us to really get to know each other and become a tight whānau, and I love that community. I'm so grateful for that community and everything that they've done to support me through this chapter. And I can say nothing but recommend that people come and join the rallies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that statement quite ridiculous. I just don't know how one could see what's happening and just sit at home, but saying that, you know, we regularly go at the Bridge of Remembrance 1 o'clock every Saturday is something the least that we can do, but it has built a community within us and hopefully some impact. Thanks for sharing that. Now, Palestinians living through continuous bombardment and continuous assault, they have shared that this activism around the whole world has deeply moved them, and indeed it has. As a Palestinian Gazan telling you, it deeply has moved them. What do you say about that to them?
It moves me to hear that it's touched their hearts. There's a lot more that can be done. There is a real community and a base of activism that's growing. However, in my opinion, we need to increase the pressure, and there are creative ways of doing that. One that we have started this week, or within these last couple of weeks, is phoning Winston Peters' office and phoning Christopher Luxon's office, because there are hundreds of thousands of people around the country who care about this and want to do something about it. And phoning Christopher Luxon's office and Winston Peters' office and asking them questions about Raycon, questions about why our troops are in the Red Sea, questions about why we haven't increased funding to UNRWA yet, questions about why we haven't sanctioned Israel, questions about why we haven't recognized the Palestinian state, questions about why we haven't joined the South Africa case against the ICJ. Phoning and asking them these questions means that they can't ignore this issue. Yeah. Because if they get hundreds of phone calls a day, it means that their offices can't function properly. And that's a good thing, because it means that they can't ignore these issues. So that is one tactic that we've come up with in order to be able to increase the pressure on our government to do more. Another tactic these are both well-known tactics, but we're working on building a schedule for people to put their name down and then be in places that politicians are going to be coming and going from, for example, outside the Beehive in Wellington, and getting them on camera answering these same questions, so that wherever they go, they are constantly being asked by people about these questions. And that's going to be really frustrating for them and difficult for them to think about anything else. Yeah. And so the plan is to continue to mobilize everyone around the country who really cares about this and wants to do something about it, in order to directly influence the decision makers and increase the pressure. So I'm pleased that Palestinian people and Gazans feel that this activism around the world is making a difference, but I feel as though we can step up the game and put more pressure on.
Yeah, yeah. It's quite heartwarming as well to see those who are suffering can see something that we see very little of what we're doing, great. And like you mentioned, we have to confront. The government has to be confronted, and there's a lot of actions, like you mentioned, that the people should know about and should take action, because a lot care about it. So thanks for sharing that, and I hope, we can learn and do these actions. Now, like we mentioned, a global movement has built up for the rights of the Palestinians. Do you see that this movement has an effective impact for a long-term ceasefire to be put in place?
The activism around the world is having a difference. It is making a difference and having an effect on the politicians. But again, I feel as though we can and need to increase the pressure in order to be able to see actual results. And so again, there's other ways that we can increase that pressure: signing petitions,
Yes.
sharing relevant videos,
Absolutely.
spreading awareness. So yes, absolutely, the activism that's happening at the moment is making a difference. But again, we can increase that pressure.
100%, yeah. Now, how have you felt your community, family, friends, co-workers have supported you in this hard journey?
I'm so lucky to have the people around me that I do.
Yeah.
The PSNA, everyone at the PSNA has been so supportive, and they've got behind this 100%. As well as people around the country as well. I was lucky enough to be able to stay with my sister Kate up in Auckland, who's a brilliant organizer and has fantastic connections in the movement up there. So she was able to get me in touch with Justice for Palestine up there, and I was able to speak at one of their rallies, as well as the Palestine Collective up in Auckland, organising a rally outside Raycon that I attended, as well as personal support from my direct family, my parents and my little sister Beth as well. They were all here. They came to the house, and that was a really special time to just talk through everything, bring it into reality, because it has been a very surreal 2 weeks. And then, to just know that they are behind me, they understand, and they support what I'm doing, but they obviously do want me to stop, because it has been hard on my community. It's been hard on my friends who care about me and are worried, and like my doctor said, what's happening over there is horrific, and just about anything is worth it at the moment. But she said that she thinks I should stop as well, because after about a week of starving yourself, you run the risk of doing damage to your heart. So hearing these messages from my community and my doctor and Palestinian people, that's been hard for me, because I know there's more pressure that can be put on the government, and I can see that it's having an effect on them. They're being forced to defend their position on television and failing to do so. Really, Christopher Luxon's response only highlighted the inadequacy of their response, and so I feel like continuing, and I feel like now is not the time to stop.
Yeah. With what you're saying, what do you feel like an average New Zealander should do with, comparing to what you're doing? What should an average New Zealander do amongst you, with all of us together in this?
So there's so many things. Come to the rallies on Saturday at 1 o'clock at the Bridge of Remembrance. Meet other people who also care about this. Become involved in the community. That's one thing. Sign my petition. There's a link to that in my Instagram bio. That's I think above 5,000 signatures as well. Also in that petition there are links to articles, very good articles about Raycon, that highlights that company's dodginess. I have a quote from one of those articles which I'd like to read you actually. Raycon said in 2006 that they plan to dominate the lucrative and expanding guided munitions and military positioning market. They said that in 2006. So think how far they've come since then.
Yeah.
I encourage people to go and sign that petition. That's another thing that they can do. As we spoke about before, people can phone Parliament. The number you can just look it up. It's an 0800 number and ask for either Christopher Luxon's office or Winston Peters' office and leave a message there. That's another thing you can do. It's not scary. Most of the time it'll just be on Messenger answering machine. You could send an email if you don't feel comfortable calling. You can send an email which we've written out, and you can just copy and paste that and send that to them as well. Letters, you can send letters. You can get in touch with your local MP and go and have a chat with them.
Yes, absolutely.
There are lots of things that we can be doing, but also I really encourage personal acts of creativity, drawing and painting, and so any personal ways of expressing your outrage.
Yeah.
Because this is my favorite thought that I've come up with recently, is that anger, there is hope inside anger.
Yeah.
That we're all angry about this. And if you can be creative, you can draw the hope out of the anger and turn it into something positive. You can turn it into a peaceful protest or your way of expressing yourself, which could be anything. It could be having a conversation with someone who's on the fence and doesn't really know about this, and if you go and have a conversation with them, that can make a big difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are the things that I would encourage people to do. Keep phoning the offices, sign the petition, spread around memes about Raycon and relevant information, as well as the footage that we're seeing and good articles. Yeah.
It's the least that we can do, day-to-day basis, being creative towards showing your love, support and resilience to this. I absolutely agree. Now to end this, making it on a personal level, myself as a Palestinian Gazan appreciates what you're doing a lot. And I'm sure people in Gaza appreciate it even more, despite the suffering that they are going through. But we don't want you to die for this cause. Rather, we want you to live for this cause and amongst us always to fight this long-lasting cause. And I myself even ask you to stop, because we want you in this for a long, long time until Palestine is free. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. And yeah, I've come to that conclusion myself, that it may be more powerful and difficult to live your entire life for a cause than to die for it symbolically. It's hard to persevere year after year, but making small gains and making differences over a long period of time may be more effective in the long term than doing something drastic that, while being symbolically effective, may not actually help in the long run. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of people, and we don't want to lose you too, and that is all we need. We need you good and well, and we're going to fight this together. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rawaa.
Thank you.